What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Torian Rain Reloaded channel. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you are new, hit that bell to be notified every time I upload a new video or go live. So you can see I have a special guest with me today on the channel. It's a person I actually just got introduced to about maybe less than a week ago from a fellow subscriber and another person who was a huge part of the new black media. Shout out to Great Black Shark. Some of you may or may not be familiar with him. What I'll do is I'll leave the link to his channel down in the description below, and make sure y'all go ahead and check his content out. But definitely, someone that is pretty much, going to pretty much be around, I guess you can say, for a while after this interview right here. None other than a man by the name of Josiah J. Starr, author. I'm gonna say author extraordinaire, on the way up and up, especially with someone who already has 3 books already. But we're gonna get into all of that. But I'm gonna let him go ahead and formally introduce himself. Go ahead.
How you doing, everybody? I'm B1. I'm Josiah J. Starr. I'm an author of 3 books. The latest book I have out is God Love Us. Some of you may know me from my first book, War of the Heart, and my second book, Nothing Will Come Between Us. What I do on my real work time is I'm actually a tugboater. I drive tugboats, shipping things all over the world, and in my off time, I write books and spend my time marketing and promoting my company, Spirit of 1811 Publishing. And the goal of that company is to elevate the debate in the our conversation in the literary world as far as Black people. There's a lot of garbage out there, and my wife is a librarian, and I see a lot of Black women and Black men consuming products from the white mainstream media that's not helpful to us. So in order to change that, instead of just complaining about it, I decided to do something about it, and God blessed me with a skill to be able to write and penmanship and say things with words on paper. So I decided to use that to progress our agenda.
Cool. And this is actually like when I was talking to GBS and how he like introduced you to me, and was saying how like I don't do like a lot of interviews on my channel. You're probably, I think, the 4th person, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, that I've had on my channel as far as an interview goes. And I'm glad that when I'm able to do these, it comes from different walks of life. Like I've had a politician on my show. I've had a person who's a major content creator who's from here but lives overseas. Then I've had a person who's in tech on my show. So now that I have an author on here, I'm glad that I'm able to talk to different people from all walks of life who do various type of things in their respective fields. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. But if you don't mind, can you give us like a little bit of your background? Like, what were you doing, before? Like, what were you doing before you decided, you woke up one day and said, you know what, I feel like my calling is to be an author?
Well, I was in the military. I was a commissioned officer in the military for over 10 years. And um, I would say my calling came to me when I got out of the military. And it's actually Professor Black Truth. I have to give much due respect to him.
Yes.
I'll never forget it. It was a very prophetic broadcast that I listened to one day. I just happened upon it on YouTube. It was the birthday cake for George Washington. And in that broadcast, I heard a voice that, so the things he was saying in that broadcast, I had always said to myself, even as a young kid. I went to college at Southern University, a historically Black college, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was a history major, and I'd always loved history and consumed it. But I've always had questions, those nagging questions that things just didn't make sense the way the white folks presented it to me. And in that broadcast, birthday cake for George Washington, I heard a seminal voice that, that kind of spoke those thoughts in my mind. And I figured, I'm not the only one that has these questions. I'm not the only one who looks at George Washington and says, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. They present him as almost a religious, with a religious zeal as far as him being a founding father and things like that. But this is a man that was, beating his own slaves and and pretty much torturing them. Um, and when I heard that broadcast, it just started me in my journey down the new Black media, finding Professor Black Truth and Jason Black and Tariq Nasheed and others, and you. So
Mhm.
um, that will be an introduction into me. Everything before that, military guy. You went to college. I played college basketball. Um, Pretty much, if you want to call myself a donating member of the DNC, the typical cookie cutter. But I've always
Mhm.
had those questions though,
Yeah.
um, that didn't quite make me the indoctrinated slave that they wanted me to be.
Yeah.
So um, when you hear truth, I'm a religious person. When you hear truth, it should grab you.
Mhm.
It should startle you, and it should cause you to stop and think and ponder on the world around you. And that's what drove me to first listen and learn. I started listening to Jason Black and others, and I realized I had a lot to learn. And I
Mhm.
got the notepad and pen, and just consumed as much as I could. Neela Fuller brought all his books.
Mm.
Dr. Claude Anderson bought all those books and studied, and listened to people online like you and others. And now it's a time for me to start speaking in a way that I know I can, and that is writing novels, and
Cool.
making my own way of changing and elevating the debate within the Black community.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned Professor Black Truth, because I always like tip my hat to him, because he definitely has given me multiple acknowledgments on his channel, like with different broadcasts that he would do on his channel depending on whatever the subject matter was. He's definitely a huge reason why I have a boost and a following on my platform.
Yes,
Not saying he's the only reason why, but definitely he plays a major part. So I definitely, owe a lot of gratitude to him for certain. And
and
I'm
we
glad
all
that,
do.
exactly,
Yeah,
for real. Like, I just love the way that, he presents the information. I always look forward to the moments of truth every morning. Like, I make sure I
yeah,
got that notification turned on. I'm so glad that he decided to start doing videos every day, because I remember when he would only do like 2 videos a week. And I
yeah,
think the people would like in high demand of him to do more videos. And I'm glad that he actually was able to, listen to the people, and it's pretty much all paying off.
yes,
So I'm,
and
I'm definitely very appreciative.
yeah. I would say
That.
he's absolutely a key figure and I would say my own transformation. And I've noticed that in this spirit that we have, there's a lot of us that um, have had our own transformation in on different times, especially after the Trayvon Martin
Yeah.
issue, where they pretty much let that
That was
rip.
actually I think that was one of my awakening moments right there, was
Yes,
that situation right there, especially since at that time when that happened back in 2012, I was 23. I
yeah,
was less than a year graduated from college, because I graduated in May of 2011, and then that happened in February of 2012. So
yeah,
it's like it kind of hit me like a bolt of lightning at a very, still relatively young
young
age, but it was
age.
at it was
Yeah,
at that it was at that ripe age where you're like just leaving your teens and you're
yeah,
just entering your 20s. So, and then you're
yeah,
almost in the middle of the 20s at that. So, so that was definitely like a major pivotal point, not just for me, but I think a lot of people, no matter what age they were at that time.
yeah. That was definitely a huge issue.
Yeah. So let's go. Like, I would say, let's like segue kind of into the books that you've written. You've already written 3 of them so far, which is already phenomenal in and of itself. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, because it was kind of short notice. I didn't get a chance to actually read the books, because it would have been hard for me to like read. Like, 'cause when I read something, I like to digest what it
Yeah,
is that I'm reading. But I still wanted to have you on, and I think that's a good thing, because now you can go ahead and explain to the people who may not be familiar with what your books are. And what I will do is I will leave the link to your Amazon, because that's where the books are at, down in the description, so people can go and check it out. And you can tell the people what each book is about. And one
yes.
thing I also had to ask too, before I actually get into the explanation: are your books like an anthology series, or they are one-offs?
Actually, the first book and the book I'm releasing now, it's part of a series. It's the
Okay.
Arkham Jeffers series,
Hmm.
and the second book, Nothing Will Come Between Us. It's a sci-fi
Okay.
action novel. It's about reparations.
Oh, that
Yeah,
sounds interesting that you combine,
absolutely.
sci-fi and reparations into that. Because I always
Yeah,
said that when it comes to black people, I don't think that there's a lot of black people in sci-fi like that. That's why when they
Yeah.
had shows like Lovecraft Country out on
Yeah.
HBO, a lot of black people gravitated towards it because it combined history and sci-fi into one show. So imagine how a lot of people were upset when they only got one season.
Yes.
So and me and I'm one of those people. Like you put like a little name tag right there, it would say, "Hi, hello, my name is." One of the people that was upset that they canceled it after one season, because that was a really good show. Like, but
Yes.
because like I said, I like that they combined science fiction and history into one show, and that one season, although we only got one season, was very phenomenal. And I
Yes.
can imagine what it would have
I
been like if
decided.
the show could. I would imagine how the show would have been if it was able to carry on more seasons.
Yeah, they weren't going to let a lot of that to carry
Of
on,
course, of course,
man.
of course not.
That
Of course
sci-fi
not.
is something that the white media loves to have a monopoly on. They'll
Hmm.
let us write about, especially now. If you look at like Kindle, I know I'm kind of going off here, but on Kindle and on Amazon and other venues that sell ebooks and things like that, they sell a lot of black women, white male books. Those are you
Yeah,
would be uh, disgusted at how popular those books are.
I can imagine.
It's absolutely disgusting, and a lot of these authors who write those books, they have pseudonyms, and some of them are white people,
I can
uh,
believe that.
and we have to be careful about that. If you are into books, be careful of the author that you're consuming, because if they don't have a face or a picture. It may be a white person under a black sounding name writing a book about black
Mm,
people and
yeah,
calling it urban or calling it an interracial deal or whatnot.
yeah.
We have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah,
So
you definitely got to research who the author is, and
yeah,
also too, before you get into your descriptions. When I think about like um people who have made, I guess you can say, a pivot or a shift when it comes to their form of, or their realm of, I guess you can say, uh, media. Jordan Peele, with the
yes,
movies he's done, with Get Out, Us, and Nope. And
yeah,
it's crazy. Like he has like pretty much majority black cast, black leads in these films. That while they on the front side they're presented as horror films, they
yes.
always have an underlying message behind it. I mean, when Get Out came out back in 2017, the amount of think pieces and lectures that people did just on that one
One
movie
movie,
alone just
yes,
said a lot. And I think it was at that point Jordan Peele realized he had something on his hand, and now it's okay.
and
Now I
that's
think I found a lane, and now I can continue
yeah.
going.
There is absolutely a lane for that, because I mean, if you look at all forms of entertainment, we've always been regulated to slaves or
Hmm.
co-stars or certain niches. Now we've gone beyond that. Like you were talking about sci-fi, we need to be more into that. White folks have controlled it, and
Yeah.
other things like that. We usually get caught up into romance and interracial
Comedy.
comedy, and if
Yeah.
it's men, right? If it's men that are buying the books, we usually buy self-help or their how-to books. We
Hmm.
may get into thrillers every now and then, but usually sports and biography.
Hmm.
But we don't get into the realm of making a thriller about like my first book is basically a thriller about um, confronting white supremacy. So
Hmm.
that's the gist
Yeah.
of it. It's a
Hmm.
thriller action book. It has romance in it, but it's confronting white supremacy, and it's bold. It's no holds bars. One of the reviews I've gotten from BookLife.com is very glowing. They had no choice, but I hate to brag on myself. I'm a pretty good writer. I have no choice but to give me a good review. They say, like, oh, if you can stomach, because I'm pretty much talking. I'm bringing up. There is no white savior in my book. It's
Hmm.
straight up and
Yeah.
down. You
Yeah.
know, and we're attacking white supremacy, and we're going through those scenes where our character grows, and he has to figure things out, and has to combat evil and
Hmm.
trickery and things like that we see on a daily basis. And you can correlate a lot of things in those, not in the Arkham Jeffers series novels, to what you're seeing now. That's
Yeah.
going on now, especially with the young gentleman who got killed in the subway, and the
Hmm.
shoes he was wearing, and those telltale signs that this is something bigger than just some Marine who
Hmm.
um, was trying to save someone on the subway. No, this is he saw an opportunity to take care of a black
Hmm.
man and take him out, and he did.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And you get to connect those dots.
Exactly. All right, so you can go in. I guess you can go into like a little description of each book because I really can't get wait for you to describe that one about the reparations. That one sounds very interesting.
We'll start with that one because
Cool.
that's a very popular one.
Okay.
It's Nothing Will Come Between Us. It's a sci-fi novel. The main character is a female, black female, foundational black American. It's set in the future, obviously. Um, we have already received reparations in this book,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm kind of speaking into fiction what I want to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to defend them now because once we get
Mm.
reparations, it was always my thought that we would be attacked harder. The
Yes,
dominant society,
I'm a believer of that too.
yes, they're going to come after us because we'll have resources, things like that. And in the plot, there's I don't want to give it too much away, but in the
Right.
plot that we have sort of a trick bag. We still have the um, like folks like us who are advocating for um, progressing the community, but then there's also a lot of black folks who are called zebras
Mm-hmm.
who want to stay tethered to the dominant society.
Mm.
And those folks are sent into reparations colonies, is what I call them, spread throughout the United States. Those folks are sent in to kind of subvert and destroy our movement. And
Yeah.
the main character, the female main character, Noria Sellers, her job is to protect us from like entities like the FBI, entities like Hispanics, and
Mm-hmm.
off-code black people, the
Mm.
LGBT community. Matter of fact, this book was called homophobic. One of the
Oh,
one of the
because of that,
reviewers.
because of that part.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely was labeled homophobic. There's nothing
Mhm.
homophobic in this book.
Mhm.
It's just speaking truth to power. And if
Yeah.
you're uncomfortable with that, there's nothing I can do for you.
Exactly. Like right. And it's funny because the way you was describing it is interesting too, because I brought up Jordan Peele. That actually sounds like a plot for
Yes,
a movie he would do. Like, like I don't know like what his next film is going to be. He just announced it's going to come out on Christmas next year. He always likes to make these big announcements way in advance, and it kind of leaves you guessing what it's
yes.
going to be about, just to start a buzz. But that sounds like the plot of a movie that I would actually go pay and see.
I've heard that quite a bit about all of my books, especially that one,
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
definitely a lot of action in there. Definitely a lot. There's a lot of subplots in there as well. The main character is having trouble with her, and it's. I'll bring it back to real world. We do have issues with marriage in the black community where it's tough to be married nowadays with
Mhm.
anyone. And speaking as a married man, there's ups and downs in any marriage, and the main character has to deal with her own marital problems,
Yeah.
and that's kind of a subplot in there as well. But yeah, and the first book and the book I'm coming out with now, God Love Us and War of the Hearts. It's a series. It's about Arkham Jeffers. He is a counter racist hitman.
Hmm.
And I love writing these books. They're so funny. He's a
I can
counter.
I can tell, like I can hear it in your voice, and that's the thing, you're supposed to, like, whenever it's something that you love, you can always tell whether
Yeah,
it's like whether you're maybe in acting, like you can tell by the way that the line delivery is. You can tell how someone's like putting it all into it, or in your case, you being an author, how you're writing it and the words that you're saying. You can tell when someone is really all in, and it's like a passion project.
absolutely. This is maybe it's because it was my first book, and
Hmm.
it was. It took me about almost 2 years to come up with this because I wrote so many manuscripts, but I
Hmm.
had to dump them in the trash because I didn't like them.
Yeah.
And then I came upon this one, and I was like, I love this. It's because Arkham Jeffers is a strong. He kind of speaks a little bit for me. I'm a guy who has a strong belief,
Yeah.
and I found my own way into this sphere,
Hmm.
and he's all about fighting white supremacy, and
Hmm.
he has his family was killed in the church
Mm.
um, by a white identity extremist, and that moved him from the pulpit into his world of counter racism. And
Hmm.
I think that's kind of a pseudonym for a lot of us as we progress in this movement. We
Yeah.
do. A lot of us do have strong beliefs, and um, we have to marry that with our faith and actually understand our faith in a way that can actually initiate change and
Hmm.
not just be a sheep, if that makes
Right.
sense. But
Yeah.
anyway, uh, War of the Heart is. I love that. I love that book. I love the Arkham Jeffers series,
Hmm.
mainly because there's a lot of hidden things in there. Like he's a hitman for an organization called Robert Charles, And
Hmm.
if you are familiar with Robert Charles, there was a Robert Charles riot in New Orleans, and
Hmm.
Robert Charles was a gentleman who killed, I think it was 4 police officers and 2 white supremacist mob members, and injured like 20 of them downtown here, and because he was getting brutalized by the police, and in the early 1900s, by the way, he was
Yeah.
getting brutalized by the police, and he decided to fight back.
Mm.
And part of what I want to do at Spirit of 1811 is renovate, is to elevate those guys, because
Mm.
those stories don't get told at all.
Right. Hmm.
You know, heck, the name of my company, Spirit of 1811, it's I'm referring to the 1811 slave revolt here in New Orleans. They call it the German Coast Rebellion.
Oh,
Then there's
nice.
all kinds of counter history of white folks don't
Hmm.
like to talk about it.
Of course.
Yeah, I live in the
Yeah.
Disneyland of plantations down here. You can go to a plantation, these plantations up and down the river, and you can go there and pay and go see how the white folks lived and their mansions and all that. And there's really nothing about how the slaves were brutalized. But
Mm.
I want to do what I can to renovate, to elevate that
Hmm.
slave rebellion, because those were heroes. Those guys actually, their motto was
Mm.
freedom or death. I,
Right.
I revere that.
Exactly.
Those are my heroes.
Hmm.
You know, those stories don't get told in this country.
Right.
Somebody has to tell them.
Hmm.
And spirit, to me, I think it lives through those. Even though those men were killed and they so-called put down the rebellion, they didn't, because the spirit lives in me,
Hmm.
and I'm just a disciple, and I want to spread the gospel.
Right.
That we can, the devil is here. The devil is here with us today, and you have to, a part of being a believer, and I hate to pick on some of my people who call themselves Christians, Christian brothers and sisters. You have no faith if you look at the devil and you get scared.
Right.
You ought to be willing to fight the devil. God didn't put you here to be persecuted by him.
Hmm.
God is at war with the devil, and you are a soldier. And if you don't get that, then you're just dry bones, as the Bible will say.
Right.
So um, the spirit, it lives. The spirit of those guys who gave their life in that rebellion for freedom to fight against systemic white supremacy in this brutal part of the country. Those are the guys that we need to elevate. We need to tell
Hmm.
their stories. It shouldn't be
Right.
white folks telling their stories. It should be
Mhm.
us.
Yeah. That's why on my channel, every week, every Wednesday, I started back in January a series of videos called the Black Massacre series, where I started going back all the way to the 1800s, and I'm in what year I'm in 1919, because I have a new episode that'll be dropping tomorrow on May 17th. Of course, it'll already be up by the time this goes up,
Yeah.
and I've learned a lot just doing that series. A lot of my subscribers have learned a lot. They love that I'm doing this series. I said I'm glad that y'all are enjoying it. I said, like, after I had did my Sundown series, which lasted almost over 2 years doing that. I started that back in 2020 and it ended last year. That's how long I was doing it.
Yeah.
And I said, like, when you were saying that these are stories that we have to put out there ourselves, because they're not told.
Yeah.
Mainstream media is not going to tell it. I don't expect them to. The
No.
school system is not going to tell it. I'm not going to expect them to either. And it's crazy because our history got so buried that it's stuff that we should have learned when we were kids, that
Yes.
many of us didn't learn until we were adults, and some people go to their graves not even knowing this stuff, and that's very unfortunate. So I'm glad that I'm able to do this series, and it's crazy too because I've actually had a thought in my mind of what the next series of videos that I wanted to do like this, and it's already like played out in my head of what I was going to do. And it's crazy because you kind of let the cat out of the bag unknowingly, because that's actually the next series I want to do, is talking about the stories when we did fight back. you
Yes.
know like I with this one, with this series right here, I'm talking about a more dark, negative side of what happened when Black people was post chattel slavery, trying to make it in this society and still getting pushed down and beat down for whatever.
Yeah.
But I said that's a story of like depression. But
Yeah.
the next series, I want to talk about stories of triumph, where there were times when we did fight back. Even if we did lose, we didn't go down without a fight.
Yes.
So like that, I think that's like the next series of videos or the next round of videos that I have to do. Of course, that's going to take some research because to try to find
Yeah,
as
it's gonna take a lot.
as many as possible because when it comes to that, we always often hear about the Haitian Revolution, which is one of the more famous ones,
Yeah.
or the one with Nat Turner, which is another famous one. But there were so many more out there. Just like when I'm doing this series, the two that come to mind that many Black people know about is Black Wall Street
Yeah.
and Rosewood. And that's
Yeah.
because they were put out there in the media, especially Rosewood, because they made a whole movie about it. And
Yeah.
then with them, I don't know if you're familiar with the show. It was another one season show on HBO, Watchmen.
Yes. Yes. I'm
When
familiar with that one.
I was actually shocked that in the first episode of that series that they actually highlighted Black Wall Street. At first, when I was
Yeah.
watching the show, I didn't episode when it was coming on, I didn't know what I was watching. I just saw it was just like a lot of Black people in the town. I was like, okay, it is what it is. Didn't think nothing of it. And then they were inside of a theater, and all of a sudden there was an explosion. I'm like, what is going on? And then they panned outside, and you see these planes flying overhead and shooting and dropping bombs. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, they have the
No,
white folks
I was
in.
like, no, I was like, no. I said, is this what I think it is? And I was like, I could not believe it. When I was watching that episode, literally just like a couple minutes in, I was literally like sitting down watching it. I had to hop up out of my chair in complete and utter disbelief that they actually had the nerve to incorporate something like that into this type of a show. I
Yeah.
said I never thought I would see the day when they would actually portray just a small part of what happened that day or that weekend, because it lasted a couple of days, into a mainstream show. And
Yeah.
then when they fast forward to it, going back to the book you were talking about, they ended up getting their reparations. It was called something else, but it was actually their reparations, and how the Black people got their reparations and how successful they became because of it.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, the white supremacists online were
Oh, very
apoplectic about
yeah, up in arms about
yeah.
that.
And even though they
They
did them a
were.
solid, they made everyone in that town, they had them all wearing clan suits, like they
Yeah,
were.
you know
I'm
what?
like,
It's literally
no,
because when you think of them,
they
because
weren't
when you
all wearing clan suits
yeah,
in real
right,
life.
exactly, like because you got to think like because when you think of like Watchmen, I remember seeing the movie back in like when it came out like in '09, maybe a little bit after, because I don't think I went and saw it like in the theater. It
Yeah,
was probably when it came on television. They were probably expecting it to be just
just
like
like
that.
that.
So
Yeah,
to see that it went into another direction while still having references from the movie and the graphic novel, that's when it was like, oh, okay, it's going into a whole different
different
direction. And what they
spirit.
were really, and let's be real here, they were really upset that a Black man was Dr. Manhattan. They were
Yeah.
so pissed that a Black man was Dr. Manhattan. They were so mad about that. And it's so crazy because the Black man that played him, he was Black Manta in Aquaman.
Yeah,
They were happy about that, but when they saw when he was Dr. Manhattan, that's when they had an issue with
yeah.
him, because Dr.
They went
Manhattan is
online
like this
quick.
very all powerful, smart scientist that has these very magical, mystical type powers that makes him damn near invincible and pretty much hard to defeat on the physical realm, the mental realm,
Yeah,
and the power realm. Like he's very like this man literally could create a whole planet himself and just
yeah,
live there if he wanted to. And they were very upset by that.
yeah.
So
Metaphorically,
yeah,
they did not like that at all.
they did not like. I mean, the think pieces I saw about that when they found out that a Black man was, Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, I was like, oh well, that's pretty much, that's pretty much where
But we could.
I was with it.
That's what we should expect. To be quite honest, um, there is a lot of. And I'm glad you're doing. You're going to do a series on history, because there's a lot of history that's been buried and has been covered up. Particularly, I live in Louisiana. Man, I live in New Orleans, and I
Hmm.
grew up outside of Shreveport, Louisiana, a small town called Homer,
Hmm.
Homer, and there's even in my own family, I've had uncles that went to jail during the '60s
Hmm.
for basically having a riot in my hometown. In our state capital, in Baton Rouge, the police abused, and I believe they shot a Black man, and they found a way. Black folks found a way to put a bomb in the Capitol and blow it up.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
See that, and
they
that see
don't
that doesn't get
they
talked
don't
about.
they don't it doesn't get talked about. There's a lot of things that get brushed under the rug. They
Mm,
don't highlight it. They don't want to highlight it,
mm,
because they understand that those things feed into the next generation,
right.
and the spirit. the spirit of that lives on, and that's the spirit that they want to kill on. They want to kill
Yeah.
out.
Sort of
Um,
like, sort of like how when with Chris Dorner, and what he did, I said, let them tell it. This guy was just going on a rampage just to kill cops,
yeah,
just for the sake of killing them. I'm like, no, there's a huge underlying reason as to why he did what he did. Like, I was watching something, I forgot what it was, and it was explaining it, but I was like, if you wanted to really understand it, just look at his manifesto. It's very lengthy, but it's very detailed as
yes,
to, because I remember when it first happened, I actually sat there and on my phone and read through his entire manifesto. It took a good 10, maybe a good 10 minutes to read,
yeah,
because it was very lengthy. But same thing with Micah Johnson, what he
yeah.
did back,
In Dallas,
in
yeah.
Dallas back in 2016. He had that city shook into its knees while a whole protest was going
And
on.
you notice they
And
never mention that. They never mention him or the gentleman in Baton Rouge.
yeah, Gavin Long.
Um, they never mention that. They
Yeah,
don't want those things to live. They
right.
understand that you may kill the person, you may get them in jail, you may execute them or whatnot. But the
Yeah.
spirit of what these people are fighting for is always going to be around.
Mm,
And I believe in the spirit realm. And um, those spirits are still here. I mean, they're
yeah.
with us as we sit here today. We
Mm,
just have to recognize and accept them, and understand the calling that God gives us all. We're
yeah.
not here to be nice. We're not here to be
Exactly.
liked. You
Right.
know,
Because we know we're not liked.
we're not
You know,
liked.
we're not. And it's crazy, when going back to Micah Johnson and Gavin Long, is because of how close they happen to each other. Like, they
Yes,
literally happen like a week or so apart, week or a little over a week apart, and they
that's
were
the
neighboring
spirit.
states.
That's the
Like, you had
spirit.
one in Texas and one in Louisiana. Like,
Yes,
what was the odds, and then it happened like that close together. And
yes.
and I said, to this day, has anybody seen them use a robotic bomb on anybody
No,
since him? Because I haven't
no.
I haven't seen it since. I said, the fact that they had to use a robotic bomb on one person because they could not get them
Yes,
says, that says a lot. Same thing that they had to do with Chris Dorner. Like, they had to literally like shoot him and then burn him inside of this cabin that he was holed up in,
yeah.
just
A
to
lot
get
of it.
him.
The white people understand fundamentally that if they were in our shoes,
Hmm.
that they would not be as generous as we are.
Right.
I grew up in a small town, like I mentioned again, Homer. For a long time, even when I was an adult, they had a tree called the hanging tree.
Mm.
It was right next to, and get this, it was right next to uh, the town courthouse. Right next to the town courthouse with the Confederate statue next to it.
I think we can pretty much guess that that's where the courthouse, where they had already deemed them guilty before they got to that courthouse, and
Absolutely,
and they said, you know what, the
absolutely.
execution is right
Right
there, so
here.
we don't have to go very far in
Yeah.
order to do that. I think they did the same thing with Nat Turner, because I remember when I was
Imagine,
early on doing my
imagine
YouTube.
growing up in a town with, like that. How
Yeah.
does that affect you? And I was always a kid. Like I said, I was a history or getting an encyclopedia back then. There was no Google, and read about certain things. And they would have the executions and things, but it would only be a sentence. And I would ask my grandmother, and just 'cause I was curious, and she would tell me the stories. Like my father, before he told me a story of driving to Homer to go. My father was from Monroe, Louisiana, and he drove all the way to Homer, Louisiana, to pick up my mom for a date. And it was his first time there in Homer, and he was driving down to town square where the courthouse and the hanging trees at. And he asked the white man, "It's like, hey, where the black folks hang out?" And the white man pointed towards the tree and said, "They hang over there."
Mm,
I mean, that's those things. Those are life things that we live with as black people, and we have to. We live in a demonic. We live in this demonic state.
mhm.
That is trying to destroy us. We have to fight back. And
Yeah.
God has given us all the tools to do that. We have to accept that it's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
And there's nothing easy about it. And there will be you cannot reform the devil.
Mm. That's like
Um,
the
you can
saying,
only,
you don't. That's like the saying, don't negotiate with terrorists.
no, you can't. You cannot reform the devil or negotiate with terrorists. You can only punish them.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and the Bible is pretty much riddled with punishment. If it's a book about punishment, it's a book about war.
Hmm.
We read
Which
it
is
during
why,
the
they didn't want the slaves reading it. I
absolutely.
remember watching the movie Birth of a Nation, Nate Parker's version, not D.W. Griffith, just to to clarify. it was a scene in that movie where, you know, he was the only one allowed to read the Bible, you know, to the slaves, but they only told him to read certain parts. But
Yes.
then when he discovered and had his like awakening, he read those other parts that they didn't want him to read, and
Yes.
he realized that like every other line was the complete opposite of the line they told before, and he was
Yes.
realizing that the lines that they were having him to read to the other slaves was the ones to keep them docile and knowing
Yes.
their place, but the other one was saying basically fight back.
Yes. Because they
And then that's what he went off of ever since then, and that's what helped him start up that rebellion.
yes, and that's why they work so hard to keep us um, from acquiring these spirits. Or they don't talk about Gavin Long. They don't talk about Michael Johnson. They don't want us
Mhm.
to. They don't want us to realize. You know what, man? They make it want to seem like it's something crazy and kooky.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's crazy and kooky. White supremacy is crazy and kooky.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's crazy and kooky. Allowing yourself to be dominated by people um, who want to destroy you. That's crazy and kooky.
Yeah.
Not being able to speak your own voice, have someone speak for you. That's crazy and kooky. I think we have we're making progress. A part of it is, you know, one thing I love about this movement is that I can see substantial progress that we've made from when I first started. I mentioned before with Professor Black Drew until now. Was 5 years ago? No one was saying reparations.
Oh,
No one was
right.
saying white supremacy,
Hmm.
and now we've interjected truth and another perspective, another narrative into the social debate nationally, and we're making progress. And people can't deny. They may hate what we say,
Yeah.
but they can't deny it.
Exactly.
That's why CRT, they're having conniptions about. They don't even want those. They don't even want to talk about critical race theory. Now, I have my issues with critical race theory.
Hmm.
Um, I may be alone in this, but I've read some of the folks who I read about some of the folks who started that, and their ultimate objective is to have critical Latino, critical LGBTQ, critical, all these other groups that usually milk off of us. Those are the next theories to come. But the foundational truth of what we experience here in this country cannot be denied,
Hmm.
and they're banning them in Florida. It's a
Yeah.
catchphrase for woke and all these other things. They understand that
Ron the
we're
snowflake.
Ron the Snowflake DeSantis. They understand that you cannot deny truth. A lie
Mm,
can only last for so long, and when people
yeah.
hear truth, they're inclined to follow it and want to do something about changing the lie. And the
Yeah.
lie is white supremacy.
Exactly. Yeah. Not, man. I can't stand the snowflake. I mean, that's just one of the names that I have him. It's
Yeah,
funny. It's so funny because like he just like a lot of people didn't know, but he just signed a bill recently making it a requirement that public schools in Florida teach AAPI history. But this is the same guy that is, he's against CRT and he's quote unquote anti woke. And I said, is this woke or not? Because now he's focusing on a particular,
yeah,
group. And I
yeah.
said, you can't tell me that there was no money involved in this. That they, Palms got greased with that one because that wasn't a freebie right there.
Well,
For them to actually have that approved.
as a student of history, the more things change, the more they stay the same,
Yeah.
and things are cyclical in history. White supremacy is going to it's going to have to get more bolder, and it's going
Hmm.
to put us as not just us in this community, but as a Black community a whole, whether
Hmm.
you are a DNC or RNC coon or whatever you want to call them, um, we're going to have to make a decision. Either we're going to face up to accept the reality of where we are and fight back.
Hmm.
And I think we're at a threshold now where we've got enough people where we can influence
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
and get folks to get on board. But
Yeah.
um, we're going to have to start fighting back because we
Yeah.
can't just sit back and hope and wish things away.
Hmm.
I don't want to kick on the civil rights generation or anything like that, but um, we fell into a trap after the civil rights are supposedly were granted. Our civil rights were supposedly granted,
Hmm.
and we have to get back on the ball of bringing something, of bringing our own interests. We have
Yeah.
to be able to control. We should have more control over um, the politics in our own community. We don't right now,
Hmm.
and that's a sad part. of where
Yeah.
we're at right now.
And that's why we keep talking about like we need reparations, cash payments preferably,
Yes,
because that way we can control all of that. When they keep trying to come up with stuff like, oh, education and a youth center or an outreach
yeah, that's
program,
true.
I said when we have the reparations we need in the form of cash payments, if we want to get that, we can definitely get that. And see, the thing is, we'll be able to control that. They are throwing out the education and these different
Yeah,
programs because they can still monopolize and control that, and we're
yes,
not falling for it. And they're getting agitated because we are. I mean, I did two, maybe three videos in the last week just going through people's timelines on Twitter about how so-called irate they were at the fact that California
I
just
saw
might
that.
actually pass that
I saw
1.2
that.
million dollars. Like they were
I love that
like,
video, by the way.
I think, yeah, listen, I said I can, like, all you got to do is probably just type in 1.2 million in reparations and you'll just see a bunch of white people just going crazy like at the fact that of that actually happening.
Let
But we
them.
can prove we can
I
prove
don't care.
documentation that people within their group have gotten it and other
Yeah.
groups have received it as well. We have received nothing. It's just the fact that a lot of y'all's got paid on the back end where y'all didn't have to make a bunch of noise.
Yes.
We are making noise and now you're upset, allegedly. And some of them, I think a lot of them are just hopping onto it because they just want to go viral. I mean, the script looks exactly the same. You might change a little bit of the wording, and if you say something like that, it'll help you go viral. But
Oh,
I've
they're
noticed
generally
that,
upset. Don't believe me.
right?
They're not. It's not just a trend. It's believe me. Those folks are generally upset.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
sail on boats with them. They're when I say reparations, they go. Their
Mm.
heads explode.
Yeah,
But
like I see it like trending like on Twitter. Like I've never seen the word reparations trend so much in
yeah,
the last year or so. Like it's to the point where it practically almost trends like every month now. I even saw one day, I think it was last week, where foundational Black Americans was like the number one trending topic in America. It was like
yes,
right up there. And whenever I see that trend, I know reparations is somewhere in the conversation, and usually it is. See, what it is they thought it was going to be a pipe dream or just something to be discussed on social media. They never thought it was going to get this far to the point where it's being talked it's mentioned in the lexicon of the form of legislation of it possibly actually happening. You got people we're getting attacked from all sides from within, like other foundational Black Americans. And that's the craziest part. I'm like, you stand to benefit from this. Why are you pushing against this so hard? Like, are you really afraid of losing your position? Like, what? Like, it's that's the part that weirds me out the most. Oh, it's
yes.
gonna be in that book.
Oh
See,
yeah,
that's
I call them
so.
zebras, Brand. That's
See,
why
so
they're zebras.
exactly. So, yeah, so it's like, see, that's why I said, like, I'm definitely gonna have to check that book out.
Oh yeah, I
But
call them
you have the people,
zebras.
and you have the people that's from out, like who's non-FBA, like people like from other parts of the diaspora saying something. Of course, you have white people saying. Then you have other people, and I'm like, you have people that aren't even living here in the establishment that are saying something. I'm like, you should definitely not be talking because you're not even here. I mean,
Yes.
shouldn't be talking, period. But you're all the way overseas. I remember I was listening to a playback on Tariq's one of his spaces he had, and it was this person who is from Nigeria that was having something to say about it. And Tariq had asked this person, they said, "Are you in Nigeria right now?" That person said, "Yeah." I would have hung up on them after that. But I know Tariq likes to have his fun with these trolls. So
Yeah.
I see why he let them continue to talk. And it was just a bunch of nonsense. I'm like, you're all the way even though over in Nigeria. You don't even stand to benefit, but you have something to say
Say about it. Yeah.
about what we have going on here. Like I'm trying to figure out us what is us getting reparations? How is that going to affect you? I
Well, yeah, I'll tell
mean,
you
do
how
we
it
need to
affects
pull? I'm
them.
like, do we need to pull up the receipts of what's going on in Nigeria right now? That's what you should be worried about right now.
When we take our rightful spot as you know, I don't want to say controlling the world, but uh, being able to control our own destiny as a people,
Hmm.
that's going to have a lot of upheaval. And
Mm.
deep down, folks
Yeah.
understand that the hierarchy, if you want to call it that, I hate using the hierarchy, but if the status quo is probably a better term, is going to change. And they don't want to see
Mm.
that.
Exactly.
They don't want to see that at all.
Yeah, and usually their position is going to be affected. So
Yes,
like they know that.
There's going to be confusion.
What they might get knocked down a couple notches, should that actually, happen.
Yeah.
And then, they'll throw out certain things like, oh, if they do get the money, they're going to spend it on this, that, and the third. And I say, first of all, number one, if they do spend it on this, that, and the third, guess what? It's their money.
It's their
I
choice.
mean, it's their money. If they want to go and spend it on
Yeah.
whatever, it's theirs. Like, and number two, not every Black person has the mindset to just go and splurge on a bunch of nonsense. There are a lot of people who will invest properly so they can continue to compound whatever it is that they have.
White
And I said
supremacy is all about.
Black people, especially foundational Black Americans, are probably one of the most pocket watched people
Oh
on the
yeah.
planet. I will never forget
From our
when
athletes, rappers, movie
I'm
stars.
glad you said that,
I
because this
mean,
is actually an example of an athlete, and I'll never forget it. Floyd Mayweather.
oh
It
my
was a few
God.
years ago. He was doing a fight. I think this was like one of those. I guess I call it a like a stand, like a put off type of fight. It wasn't like a major one
Yeah.
that he did overseas. I want to think it was maybe Japan. I'm not entirely sure. There was an article that they put out there to talk about the fight, and in the headline of the article, it put in there how much he was going to get paid. I'm like, why do we have to know how much he's going to get paid? Just say that this is who he's fighting. And that's it. Like, they just said that he stood to make this amount of millions of dollars from the fight. And when I saw that,
Yeah.
that literally pissed me off. Like, I don't think many people understood why it made me so mad, because it's like, you literally put how much money this man was standing to pay instead of actually saying who he was fighting. You just put, oh, he's going to make this amount of money, from this fight,
Yeah.
win or lose, or whatever the case may be. And that's when
Yes.
I knew that we are the most pocket watch people.
And look
Another
at our
example was Michael Jordan. Went back a
Michael
few years
Jordan.
ago when he was in Atlantic
Yeah.
City gambling, and I'm like, the guy's gambling.
Gambling. He can do whatever he
Y'all,
wants with his
he can
money.
do what he wants. I mean, y'all have all this praise and everything when he's going up and down a court and slam dunking, sticking his tongue out and doing whatever. But when he's doing something where he's like using his money, y'all make it seem like the guy has a problem. Like, he's going around
I'll give
hitting
you
people,
one more recently.
with the crap stick. Like, it's crazy to me.
I'll give you one more recently. Lamar Jackson. I don't watch football,
Yeah.
but I mean, if you go on YouTube or on the news, you couldn't help but to see the articles they were writing about that young man
Yeah.
trying to get his contract, what was it, renegotiated or whatever, or get signed a new contract. I
Yeah.
mean, they were like, well, why don't you take 100 and so million? And he wanted his market value.
Yeah.
They didn't want to pay him his market value. And he wanted guaranteed money. They didn't want to give him all guaranteed money.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. We are, as you said, we are the most pocket watched, and they understand that if we get wealth, if we're able to compete in the world economy, there's going to be a problem for them, because white supremacy is all about eliminating competition.
Yeah.
And we are the main competitors, because I don't want to say that, but I'll just say it, because we are a special people. And they understand that if they compete with us, history will recycle.
Yeah, and and you got to think too, right? And you got to think too, like, a lot of people like to always say, like, like, punch down on us and everything like that. But the thing is, we've never been in a position to equally compete on a level playing field, so no one really knows what we are capable of like that, at least for long periods of time. Yes. The closest I think we've gotten was with Black Wall Street, but you see what they did with that. And that right there should have told everybody, the fact that they destroyed that lets you know
everything you need to
know why they didn't want it to go too far. They was like, oh no, they getting too far without us, and they did this post-slavery without our help. Oh no, we need to find a way to not only destroy that and take the resources that they already have, but we need to find a way to keep them dependent on us for as long
can monetize
as we possibly can.
Their special gifts, like they do with hip hop and sports and acting and music. They understand that if we are given any opportunity, we have shown the propensity to create our own lane, and be able to affect the world. I lived in Bahrain for Middle East for about 1.5 years, and I was absolutely amazed at how our culture has saturated that part of the world. A lot of even in God Love Us, the new book I have out now, I have the character he's actually in Bahrain, and I took a lot of my experience and put it into that first chapter. They want to be Black Americans. They don't want to be treated like a Black American.
Right. They want to be,
yeah, but they definitely idolize us. And I saw that with not just the Middle Eastern Arabs, but also the Africans that were there too.
Mhm.
There's this love-hate relationship with us.
Mhm. I've always said that.
That's
I've always
very, it's very poignant. You can feel it.
Mhm. I've always said that we are the trendsetters of the world, and I stand firmly on my square when I
Yeah,
say that. Like, you can find our influence just about anywhere across
across
the
the world.
globe. Like,
Yes,
especially, with our culture, it's crazy because a lot of people will say that black culture or foundational black American culture can be seen as toxic and this, that, and the third. Well, I said, if it's
yeah.
so toxic, then why is everyone
Everyone
biting
doing
off
it.
of it then?
Yeah,
Like, if it's so
Asians.
toxic, then why would you, like, who messes with something that's toxic? Then
Toxic.
I said,
Yeah,
yeah, so it's like, it's kind, we know why, because
it's
you can benefit.
intoxicating.
Yeah, yeah, you can, because you can find a way to benefit off of it. You found some benefit to that so-called toxic culture, but it's like I said, it's the weirdest thing. But I always stand firm to say that we are the trendsetters of the world. Whenever we say something is great or good or whatever the case may be, the world is going to find a way to latch itself to it. And if we don't want to mess with it anymore, or we don't deem it worthy to be cool or whatever, no one else is going to really mess with it, or they'll try, but it's not going to work. For example, on TikTok, and I'm sure you probably heard about this. On TikTok, it was a series of black people on TikTok who would create these dances, and TikTok would not promote them. Like, they were not pushing their videos out into the algorithm like that. And as we all know, TikTok is Chinese owned. They were not putting their videos out into the algorithm. But when other groups, mainly white people, was copying those dances, TikTok pushed them, and some of them got pushed so hard that one of them, I think, ended up on like a on one of those nightly television shows and did the dance that they copied from another black person. And they was like, okay, so you don't want to push and promote us, but you'll push and promote them to the point where they can get to a level of stardom, to the point where they on a show doing our dances. So they said, fine. So a bunch of those black TikTokers got together and did a whole boycott. And I think the boycott lasted maybe the entire summer, to the point where it was a bunch of white people on there didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
Like, they literally was standing there looking like a deer caught in the headlights, because they didn't know, they couldn't come up with any dances, because they didn't come up with any. They had to copy what the black people did. It sort of remind me of that movie Bring It On, but
yeah.
with dancing. So like I said, I always say that we are the trendsetters of the world. A lot of people will say, oh, it's American culture. Oh, it's American culture when you can adapt to it. Just like when it comes to
Oh, it
the
becomes
Olympics.
uniquely American at
I
that
said, just
point.
like when
And they
it
can
comes
make
to
money off of it.
just like when it comes to
Bastards.
the biggest one. When it comes to the Olympics,
Oh,
black people be dominating in whatever field they are in: track, basketball. When Serena was playing tennis over there, the gymnastics dominate over wherever the Olympics are held at. They're seen as, oh my God, they're American. They won a gold for America, because it's for America.
it's America
But then they
too.
get back over here and it's business as usual.
Usual, yeah,
I call that the Jesse Owens effect.
yeah.
Because
Muhammad
when he went,
Ali, when he
Muhammad Ali is
won,
another one.
yeah, when he
So
won his
I'm
gold
so
medal.
is I said, you're American when you are able to perform for them on their stage.
Yes,
That, because that benefits them. But the minute you come back home and you say, "Oh, I want to do something for my people," you're divisive.
you're divisive. Yes,
So it's like
you're
you're all these other it's
the
all you're all
things.
these other things. Unlike
You're
with them, they
other.
can go over there and they can compete for America, and then they can come back and do something for themselves. And it's like, oh, you're such a humanitarian. So I'm like, the verbiage, yeah, like, they think we don't see that, but I most definitely see it. It's very glaring.
Yeah, it's very it's extremely obvious, and there's there's a lot of ways that we can change that, and I'll put that in my book. Nothing will come between us. I make a distinct divide between foundational Black Americans and the greater America, to the
Mhm,
point where we have our own colonies, we have our own laws,
mhm.
we're able to have our own patents, and
Nice.
we have agreements with the dominant society as far as jurisdiction and authority is kind of getting to some law things, but in the future, that's where I see us moving. And once we get our reparations, we're not going to leave America. This is
Mhm,
the country my relatives bled, died, and sweat and built.
Yeah.
But we're going to have our own here, where
Yeah.
we can actually profit from our greatness. Right
Mm.
now, we can't really profit from our greatness. We have athletes that make money, but they don't own the NBA or NFL.
Right. Hmm.
You know, they don't own the record companies. They don't own the
Hmm.
movie theaters
Yeah.
or movie producers. Um, we have to be able to own those things and able
Hmm.
to be able to speak our own voice to the world.
Exactly. And it's crazy too because I had posted like a little short video on my YouTube channel. It was a video that I saw on Twitter where it was a bunch of black people in Georgia. I can't remember which part it was. They
Yeah,
ended up pooling their money together and they brought this whole community. And in that community, they put a bunch of tiny homes in those communities. And it was just a sight to see. And then I had saw that one of them blue check white supremacists had got a hold of that video and literally was questioning and saying, "Is this not segregation?" I said, "You got a lot of nerve,
you
considering
sure do.
I says considering your ancestors not that long ago in the Jim Crow wherever
Yeah,
had whites only signs up to
yeah,
keep black people out of communities like that. So you want to say that is segregation? See, that's the trick. That's that trick back thing. They try to make black people feel bad
yeah, guilty.
for for having
But
their own.
here's the
But
thing,
I'm
Torian. I
glad that
don't.
I'm glad black people are not biting or like saying, you know
Uh,
what, that is not a good thing. Maybe we should,
you know,
share. I'm glad they're not
my
doing
answer
that.
would be straight up and down. Yeah, it's segregation. You know why I need to segregate from you? And I would just go down to history
Hmm.
because it's undeniable.
Hmm.
Well, why would I not? Why would I, as a conscious, logical black man, say, "Hey, I need to segregate from these people who are trying to kill me"?
Mm.
Why would I stay in a room with a serial killer?
Mm. Right, exactly.
Why would you?
See, yeah, yeah, and leave them absolutely flabbergasted, like literally, like their mouth hit the floor, their eyebrows raised up, like I
I mean,
can't believe they actually said it.
they
Yeah.
refuse to reform.
Mm.
They refuse to get, no matter
My
the
quote,
example we set, they refuse to change.
like
So
my quote,
why would you stay in a marriage with someone who's cheating on you?
right,
Well, I mean, it doesn't
or
make sense.
abusing you.
Or
Yeah.
abusing you. Why would you
Hmm.
stay? Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense unless you are
Exactly.
insane too.
Yeah,
So
like
if
my
you are
quote.
logical, you
Mhm.
decide that, hey, maybe I need to segregate from you at certain points. We can economically segregate, socially segregate, and then we can integrate at certain things. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
like-minded folks who are about business, but
Mhm.
I don't want to be integrated with you if you're about shooting my son when he's walking home with a bag of Skittles.
Exactly. And you got to think like when not only just like what you see like on the news, but look at the rhetoric that you see online.
Yeah,
Like a lot of that stuff happens online. A lot of these white supremacists get radicalized online.
yeah,
Like look at what just happened recently in Texas with Mauricio Garcia.
yeah.
He name dropped two people. He name dropped Nick Fuentes and Just Pearly
Really
Things.
things. Yeah,
Like those are two people that are online entities. They don't have television shows that you can watch like a CNN or a Fox News. Like that was he mentioned them online. And another example I'll give is with Peyton Gendron last year at the Tom's grocery store. I just did a video yesterday where the families of the victims are suing multiple social media sites for having a hand in like what he did. Twitch being the main one because he live streamed for 2 minutes of him doing that on Twitch, and people were actually able to see in real time him slaughtering black people inside of that store. But I think they went after Twitch, Discord, YouTube, Snapchat, Meta slash Facebook, and I think it was a 4chan. 4chan definitely. My goodness, that damn
they
4chan.
can
I'll never
blame
get.
they can
I'll
blame all
never.
those sites they want. That those kids are raised in homes. They come from somewhere.
Mhm.
I mean, someone
Yeah.
has
They.
to,
Oh, speaking of that,
someone's putting a value system in those kids
I'm
where
glad.
they're able to go on 4chan and all those sites and absorb those illogical ideas of white supremacy. So
I'm glad you mentioned.
they can blame it on social media all they want. We live in a society that fosters and produces these demons.
Mhm. I'm glad you said that you brought up the parents too, because not only are they going after those social media sites, but they're also going after the gun company where he
Oh
bought the
God.
guns and the tactical gear from, and they're going after his
Anything,
parents too.
anything besides white systemic white supremacy in the society. It's the same old. It's the same old con game they've been running for hundreds of years now. They can try to punt it away to somewhere else, but the problem lies within themselves, and that's why we. Well, you asked me what about the segregation. Yeah, I'm segregating from somebody who is absolutely insane and does not wish to get better. They don't
Mhm.
care.
Right.
So at this point, for the safety of my people, my black folks, yeah, we're
Mhm.
gonna we're gonna segregate ourselves to a certain extent, and we're gonna try to
Mhm.
protect ourselves because
Yeah, and
you
it's
have
not a
shown a
problem,
propensity to kill.
and it's not, and it's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it.
We have the
You
right
can
to
hate me all you
actually,
want, but
do
my
that.
kids are gonna be alive.
But the receipts, we have the historical receipts to back up why that needs to happen. I said
Yeah,
one thing
absolutely.
that we did wrong was we integrated way too prematurely.
We did it too fast.
We integrated at a time
Yeah.
where it wasn't organic, it was artificial. It
Yes, it
was more
was.
of a benefit for them than it was for us.
Yes,
I
and
said
we.
if it was a more organic integration, it would probably play out a whole lot differently. I said what we would have had to have done before we integrated anything is we would have to make sure that our affairs were in order first. Our affairs were not all the way in order. We was actually getting there, and I think that's probably why they decided to integrate, because it was like, okay, we need to get them now
Yeah,
while they are in like plot mode.
yeah,
If we get them in plot mode, they're gonna drop whatever it is they're doing, and they're gonna gravitate towards us. And damn it, that's exactly what happened. Like they knew, they had that game plan running. The only
yeah.
thing that would have worked against them is if black people collectively said no.
Yes.
That would have put a whole monkey wrench into their plan.
I wish you said
Unfortunately, that did not happen.
if you want to integrate, we can integrate economically, but socially, no. I mean, I think we were so bit. You know what it was? It was the signs. It was the white only signs that really
Mm-hmm.
just got under our skin, and we thought if we can get those taken down, that the whole edifice would fall into pieces. But that
Yeah.
wasn't what happened.
Yeah.
You're not going to destroy the system of white supremacy unless we do it economically, and even now, I'll like right like this at this point now, my promotion of my book, God Love Us, I do a lot of walking around shoe leather, handing out flyers and things like that in my neighborhood, and
Mm-hmm.
um, wherever we talk about social issues, I see a customer or whatever, and he reads the flyer, and we start talking about black empowerment. We never get to the point of economics unless I bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think we're still not there yet as
Mm-hmm.
far as understanding the power. I mean, slavery was an economic venture. That's what it
Yeah.
was. All the
Mm-hmm.
ideology around it was just to justify, getting free labor. You cannot beat free labor, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That is
After all, when chattel slavery officially ended, they got reparations, for the loss of free labor,
absolutely.
which was our ancestors, and they don't talk about that either. They love to bring up like how, why should you give it reparations? I was, we weren't slaves, they weren't slave owners, and they love to use that line. I'm like, but you benefited because your ancestors, who most likely owned slaves, got paid. Where do you think
Yes.
that money went? That money
Yes.
most likely trickled down. And then on top of that, the plantations were already built. So if anything that's there in their name got passed down generation after generation after generation, it's most likely still there in that name.
Yeah. All those
So you did benefit, even
benefit,
though
and
you
they
didn't
still
own
are.
anybody. And
All
still, yeah,
those
exactly, and still
plantations that
are.
are on Mississippi where I live, which is right out here, right outside my house. All those plantations, they eventually sold the land, or put industry there, or sold it to industry, or they subdivided those plots out. And where do you think that money went? I mean, that's passed down to generation to generation. I went to Southern University. I think I mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I was part of a group called Youth Elect back
Mm-hmm.
when I was a card carrying DNC member, and I remember going to having a class with with some LSU students on LSU's campus. It was kind of a crossbreed thing they were doing between Southern and LSU. They were
Mm-hmm.
trying to be brother and big brother schools and
Yeah.
whatever. But I went to a class there, and there was a young white girl. Her father owned a private prison in
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, and I knew people I grew up with, they were in that private prison. And it was just the weirdest dynamic. And she was, had wealth. You could tell she had a nice car and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, every time I looked at it, I thought in my mind, like, wow, the suffering of people I grew up with, and I knew they're paying for her education, they're paying for her car, they're paying for she's living this nice lifestyle.
Yep.
So that system never went away, especially with the 14th Amendment. You can slave by name. Let's say you could be a slave to the government. I mean, that stuff never went away.
Mhm.
Um, we need reparations. It's
Yes,
beyond valid. It's
yeah, it's
beyond
not even a
valid.
want. It's not even a want anymore. It's a
Yeah,
need.
it's
Like
a need.
it's an
It's
asset.
just like the bank needs. If I don't pay my mortgage, the bank they're going to need to get this land from me.
Yeah, and
So they can,
that's another series that I was thinking about doing is talking about these different these different entities that benefited off of slavery that are still around today.
yes,
That's another thing that
yeah,
doesn't get talked about, because I said some of y'all don't realize that a lot of these banks, they benefited heavily off of slavery and they're
yes,
still around today. One of
yeah,
them is JP Morgan Chase.
yes.
That's one of the top ones right there that benefited heavily off of slavery. And I'm like, that's the same bank that kicked Kanye West out of it last year. But we ain't gonna get into all that. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I said that was another series of videos I wanted to talk about, is who benefited off of chattel slavery. And
they're littered
it's
all
a lot
over
of
the
entities.
place. There's a
Like they're
lot of
all over.
them.
Like you can easily go and Google it, because I remember a couple years ago they came up with like 10 of them. I feel like there's more than 10, but they
There's
did
way
like
more
the
than
top.
10.
I think they did the top 10 as far as of revenue goes.
Yeah,
And JP Morgan was, I think, in the top 5. And I think they was number 1. Like they, billions come out of there. So
yeah. When white folks
yeah.
get around me and or even online or whatever, and they're talking about, well, I didn't benefit from slavery. I just roll my eyes. I don't even pay attention. I mean, that person is
Okay.
completely ignorant. He's just making up lies. I mean,
Right.
there's just so many places. I live in New Orleans. I keep saying it. I mean, I can walk out right now, pick up a rock, spin myself around 10 times till I get dizzy and throw it and hit an institution that benefited from the
Mm-hmm.
oppression of my ancestors.
Right.
So, I mean, it's that's a ridiculous statement on its face. I don't take it serious.
Mm-hmm.
No real economist is going to take it serious, or historian is going to take it serious. They understand that we have a valid argument. That is just the excuses at this point, and we
Mm-hmm.
got to get what we're owed.
Yeah. And also too, like, what was I ready to say? Damn, I forgot. Just I forgot just that quick. But yeah, like I said, it's definitely an asset, not a liability. It's a need, not a want. And I'm
Yes,
glad that it's being pushed out there into the forefront more heavily now, to the
yes,
point where it cannot go away. Because again, it went from people thinking it was a joke and laughing at it to now they're up on social media crying enough tears to start another flood. But how can this happen? Left this California, that blue state, please, Gavin Newsom, do something. I'm like, just when y'all was saying, y'all
it
talking
never
stuff about
happened.
Gavin Newsom a while ago. Now y'all
Pipe
need him to do
dream.
something for me,
Yeah,
everything like that. But I'm like, the conversation is out there. It's not going away anytime soon, no matter how much you wish it away, no matter how much you pray it goes
it's
away.
here.
It's here to stay, and you just gonna have to deal with it. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Atlanta.
I don't watch it.
Oh
No,
yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Well, the show, well, you've heard of it, right?
I've heard of it. Yes.
Okay. Well, the third season, which was probably one of the best seasons, I think Donald Glover, he was probably watching some of us online with to come up with the inspirations for the episodes for that season. But it was one episode he did, which was a reparations episode. And it was a filler episode because it didn't have the main cast in there. And it was basically a white guy, he single parent, he was divorced from his wife, he had custody of his daughter, and he was going to work, and then one day he came home, he just went home, business as usual, from picking his daughter up from school. And all of a sudden he gets a knock on the door, and it's this black woman at the door, and she's holding this piece of paper in her hand. And in so many words, she walked into she walked into the home and started looking it around like she was some kind of an appraiser. And he was like, "What are you doing in my home?" She said, "I'm just looking around my home." He's like, "Your home?" She was like, "Yeah, because according to this document, your ancestors own my ancestors, so I own this home." And it was like, so like, if you don't watch any other episode, watch that one, because
Okay.
it goes on to one of the funniest parts of the episode was when he had went to work and he came back. The woman that came to his home literally had a whole cookout in front of the home. like literally, like, and she was standing there with the sign with the paper, like, hey. But basically, the whole episode. But the thing is, the whole episode ends with it's a bunch of white people ending up having to well, he ends up I forgot what kind of job he has. I think he had like some kind of an office type of job. And in the office, we have white people in there trying to trace their ancestry to see if they, have. So it's like literally, like, I like how he did it.
Yeah.
And even at the end of the episode, the
That's
guy
gonna
ended up
happen.
having to take another job because what ended up happening is when it came to them having to pay reparations, because it ended up starting to happen, he had to take on another job because you got to think he was already paying child support. He had to support himself with the job he had, but now because he had to pay reparations, he had to pay extra taxes. So he had to pay a reparations tax. So he had to take on a job working in a restaurant
Oh well.
where we're in a black owned restaurant at that.
Yeah.
Like go and watch the episode. It was season 3. That was probably one of the best episodes that like plays out in my memory. Like I said, he really hit a lot of black type topics because one of the first episode of that season, he touched on Lake Lanier.
Yeah.
He touched on Lake Lanier and he talked about the
don't think for a second these folks aren't
family.
These folks aren't listening to what we're saying.
Oh yeah, that's why I said when I was watching this season, I was like, Donald Glover, have you been watching the new black media? Because this season looks like something we would have talked about online.
They're grinding their teeth, but they're listening, and they understand that they see the numbers, they see people viewing it, they see people parroting it online. The talking points that come from places like here and Jason Black and Tariq Nasheed and Professor Black Truth and the list can go on. They see those talking points and they understand that they're coming from somewhere, and they understand in order to stay relevant, they need to appeal to the audience.
Yeah,
and those things, even like Roland Martin, he sounds more and more. He's talking about unapologetically black, and other things he says. I mean,
I'll be laughing at Roland Martin.
Yeah, I mean,
especially every time when especially every time Jason Black gets a chance to take a dig at him. And the thing is, it's so crazy because like he doesn't even have to, depending on the topic he is, but he'll find a way to slide a dig in it. That's what like I'd be looking at when Roland Martin be doing anytime he does like a video or a live stream, whatever it is, I'd be like, Roland, please don't wear some kind of African moo because they gonna grab a hold of it and they gonna clown you. Like I'm like, why do you even bother? So it's like, but I get my cheap laugh, my little entertainment.
That just shows the extent to the power we have. We realize there's a lot of stuff we don't have, and we kind of complain and bicker amongst each other about that. But we do have a very powerful weapon, and that's the truth. And whenever you come into battle with the truth, you have a good chance of, if you know how to utilize the truth, you can win. And and we're starting to find that out because they're trying to sound like us. They're trying. Even look at Joe Biden in that speech he gave
at Howard.
He had to have a disclaimer. I'm not just saying this because I'm in front of a black audience.
He said at a black HBCU. I'm like, well, what else is it called? It literally is in the title, historically black college and university. I'm like, are there black PWIs or white PWIs, I should say? But I mean,
that told me when I heard him say that, and Tariq Nasheed was right about that. They did not publish that on the New York Times, I believe it was the news institution. They didn't publish that quote. But when I heard the whole speech and I heard him say that, I was washing dishes in my house, and he dropped the dish. I was like, they're gonna lose. They're at the end of the day, it may not be this year, it may not be next year, but 5-10 years down the road, they understand they're losing.
Yeah.
For him to put that disclaimer in his speech at a commencement speech.
Yep.
They understand that they are losing the social and national argument for not just for reparations, but for doing right to foundational Black Americans.
Yeah.
They understand that.
Yeah. And then when I had heard that he was going to be the commencement speaker, I said, I can only imagine, because I didn't watch it, but I said, I can only imagine what he's going to say. And that was before he said what he said. And Clyburn was there too. I was like, oh God. I said, that just goes from bad to worse.
Absolutely hate. I despise Jim Clyburn.
Did you see that recent video that he did? that
Yes,
recent video where the
yes,
guy had asked him about reparations and he
yes,
said, "Hell no, you're not getting it." Like those were his words exactly. And then he did the whole, education, the same typical thing that we always hear. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, but wait a minute, Clyburn, back in 2021, didn't you praise some kind of bill for some land for some Native Indians in the Carolinas? Like you actually praised that. You didn't say, hell no, you're not getting that. You didn't
yes.
come to them with the education talking point, and that doesn't even benefit you. You're not them. This actually could benefit you, as far
James
as I'm
Clyburn
concerned.
he's the type of Negro that I believe is the most dangerous threat to to black society.
Hmm.
I
I
believe
can,
he
yeah, I
is.
can, yeah, I can,
I mean,
especially because
he,
especially because he's in the position that he's in too.
there's Negroes have this train of thought. I cannot. When Marcel Dix gets ready to ramp up there, he can count on the donation. I cannot stand Jim Clyburn.
Well,
He
that
is
makes two of us, and we
he
don't
is
even
the
live in his state.
yeah. I don't live in this state, but I'll find a way to contribute to Marcel Dix campaign as much as I can. That guy
Yeah,
needs to
I
go.
actually had Marcel on my channel last year. Like when I was talking about the type of people that I had, spoken with, he fell into the politician realm. But
When
yeah,
that
I
guy
definitely had
says
him. Yeah, I've
when
had
he's
him on my channel.
when he says welfare is reparations, I mean there's
I'm like,
nothing. I'm
hold
getting
on.
angry just thinking about it right now.
I'm like, hold on. Like, how is welfare reparations if everyone can benefit from it? And let's be real here, who receives the most welfare, and that is white people. Like, you can pull up
Absolutely,
any stat. They number one every single time, no matter how you try
he
to,
knows that.
how to spin it. Like,
Jim Clyburn is
yeah,
well aware that white people benefit more off of those social programs than we do. He is so out for himself.
yeah.
These are the type of Negroes that I hate the most. It's the one I can tolerate, have love and understanding for the ones who are naive, because we've all been there and we're all trying to go grow in our journey in life. I get that. But it's the ones who understand how the system works. He understands how white
Oh,
supremacy
yeah,
works,
definitely.
but he chooses to side with the white man
Yeah, he playing that
because
game.
spirit of 1811. The reason that this rebellion didn't work was Coons, was people like
Oh
Jim
yeah,
Clyburns
yeah,
who
definitely.
told,
That's why they had to get. That's why when it came to the Haitian Revolution, they said before we go and fight that enemy, we need to get rid of the enemy from within, because
there
if we
were,
don't, they are going to ruin it. And that's exactly what they did. And then they went and fought, and that's how they won. So
yes,
that's basically how it is. That's why in the movie Birth of a Nation, that one part that pissed me off was
yeah,
when that kid went and told the slave master what they was doing, and it completely thwarted their plan. They got a little bit ahead,
yeah,
but when it came to what it could have been, that one person, that one kid went and told, because he got scared, and told them what they were doing.
yes,
And it didn't benefit him because he ended up fighting in the damn Civil War, and he most
same
likely
thing.
died.
And it's
So I mean,
and
so
it's we got to
it
learn
is what it
from,
is.
hey, black people, we got to learn from our history. It's the slave rebellion here in New Orleans. It would have been successful if it weren't for traders
Mm-hmm.
who went and
Yeah,
told massa in
yeah.
New Orleans, because the slave rebellion actually took place outside of the city of New Orleans. It took place just, I want to say, west of a place called La Place, a little plantation there. Their
Mm-hmm.
plan was to march into the city of New Orleans, take the armory there, and control the port of New Orleans. It was the port of New Orleans then. But um, slaves, or I should say coons, told the white authorities that, hey, we have this army of about 1,000 slaves that they're killing slave owners on their way down to the city of New Orleans, and they're going to come seize the city.
Yeah,
And they actually warned them, so they couldn't. They thwarted them outside of the city of New Orleans.
yeah.
Those are the Jim Clyburns, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because those slaves actually got those traders actually got manumissions. They were freed,
Mm-hmm.
and they were given all kinds of reward for tattletaling.
Meritorious mission.
Yes, and Jim Clyburn, he is the direct descendant of those cowards, and
Mm-hmm.
we got to get rid of those guys. He understands that reparations is not welfare. He
Definitely not.
understands that,
Yeah,
and he understands that why we are harping against police injustice and police violence and things like that. But he does not care.
exactly.
And
As long he has to make sure that he's good, and as
yes,
long as he is good, he could care less about us.
him and his daughter.
Like the only way he would say reparations is a good thing is if he could stand to benefit from it. But the thing is, you would, because as far as I know, he's a foundational Black American. So you would
Nobody would
benefit.
listen to him.
So you
That's
would.
why
So
he
you would be.
understands. He understands if we got reparations, we have no reason to listen to him anymore.
Good point.
He will
Exactly.
become
We will
irrelevant
be independent. We
immediately.
will be independent of him.
Absolutely.
And so the thing is, not only will we be independent of the so-called dominant society, we will be independent of these traitors.
Yes,
Like
and
we
mushmouth
like we,
Negroes like him.
and then we would actually be in a position to punish them the way that they should be. That's why I had said that and they probably scared of that. That's why I said that whenever a person like that gets their wake-up call, it's going to come from the people who ask they kiss the most, because they're in a position to do it. And that's who they're like that's who they gravitate towards. I mean, look at Stacey Dash.
Yes.
Where's she at now?
Oh,
This woman
nobody.
literally got her bones off of our community in her career, but then gave us her ass to kiss when she went over there and thought she was doing better. But now where's she at? She got kicked when what's his name? Who used to own Fox News?
You talking about Rupert Murdoch?
No, not Rupert Murdoch. The one before him. The I don't know.
Roger Ailes.
Roger Ailes. When Roger Ailes died, that was when she was on her way out. Like, she wasn't even a main. She was a contributor, but she didn't like have a. She was probably trying to work up to herself getting a show. Like, that was going to happen. He didn't even refer to her by name. He called her that black girl.
Yeah.
First off, he said that black girl. First off, I'm like, she's a grown woman. He called her a girl. And that probably made her feel some type of way, because this woman goes around. This woman goes around claiming her being half black, half Mexican wherever she go. Even though back in the day we couldn't tell the difference, because she didn't look like the typical Mexican. And she wasn't on Univision or those Mexican television shows or whatever. She was in black movies and black shows. But when she did all of that, this woman had one of the biggest wake-up calls ever, because remember, she had that incident with her ex-husband and his child. She got arrested. Not the child and not the husband, but her. So, that right there is the ultimate fall from grace. And that's the type of fall I want all of them to experience. At that point, when you know you're done. It's a wrap for you.
I agree with you, but then I don't, because I would want the fall for grace. This is when we're actually going to reach our apex of power. When we're able to punish Stacey Dash, when we're able to punish Jim Clyburn, and relish the day when we're able to punish those individuals for harming the black community. When we're able to issue out the harm. Now, it's one thing for the white supremacists to be white supremacists and be turncoats and discard of tools they don't need. But it's a whole nother thing when we can issue out a severe amount of pain for those who cross or don't follow the agenda of the black community.
Most definitely. And that's why I said that if we had reparations, we would be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Because then that not only would that give us an economic boost, like definitely we would go from here to here overnight. But it would give us a certain level of power that we never had before.
Yes, and they understand that.
Yeah,
white folks understand that.
And that is what they are scared to death of.
We can cultivate our own. We can cultivate the behavior we want in the community, and the white folks understand that. If you have the economics, you can cultivate just about any kind of behavior you want. Look at the LGBT community. They can cultivate all kinds of behavior there.
Yeah, and that's a very small community.
Yeah, very small community. They're punching outside of their reach range. And the same thing with immigration and even religious groups. Certain religious groups, they can punch outside of their boxing range because they have economics. And once we get that tool, we will be able to manufacture the behavior that we want, the agenda that we want. Because if you don't participate or come outside the lines, you will be excluded from this economy. And we could have a very robust, we could be 12-15% of the population, but we could definitely have an economy that outpunches other groups that are significantly bigger than us in this country, just because of the talent pool we have. If we ever get ourselves together economically, we can change this country. Period.
Oh, most definitely. And the thing is, and a lot of them, like, they are so stuck in the narrative of us not having this, that they don't realize how much that actually could benefit this economy. Because unlike other groups, we're not going to be quick to outsource resources to other nations. We're going
No.
to try to keep it within. This could actually help the economy get a major boost.
Yeah.
So this could actually work multiple ways, but they don't see that because
But they
they
see
only
that
see us getting
getting them,
something.
but they see
They
us
keep,
getting something. And if
yeah.
they do see it your way, they see it as, okay, yeah, United States can be super boosted, echo boosted by the growth of the black economy. But
Mm-hmm.
that gives the black people a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't not
A lot of
necessarily.
power. Can you imagine
Yes.
foundational Black Americans sitting in on them UN meetings?
Oh
They
yeah.
like they like, okay, now they really going too far. Like they really out there now. So yeah, like it's really like when you think about it in hindsight and you put all of that together, it's more than just us getting cash payments. It's
Yes.
a lot. That's one part of it, but that's actually the smallest
No, it's
fraction.
part. It's
But
the cachet
it's everything that comes
after that.
behind that
Yes,
that
the
they're that, that
cachet.
they're that they're worried about, including what I just said about us sitting in them UN meetings
Yeah,
and
because we're
calling
gonna come.
and calling
We're
shots and having political power.
wow. Think about a foundational Black American coming in there with that our rich history of what we've been through. Trying to mediate something between two
Mm-hmm.
countries. I mean, what voice the most oppressed people on earth? I mean, that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah,
And
just
if you
imagine.
add economics to that,
Yeah, just
mm,
imagine having just imagine having Dr. Claude Anderson in a UN meeting,
oh yeah,
or even Tariq or
oh
Jason
yeah,
Black or Professor Black Truth sitting in on one of those big meetings that a lot of us were never able to sit in on. We would just have to watch from the outside or listen from the outside. Sometimes we weren't even allowed to be in the building.
oh yeah.
But also too, not only be in that, but also create our own think
Own
tanks, like
yes,
have our own like foundational Black American think tanks, like a lot of
geopolitic
these other
political
groups. Yeah,
organizations.
like all these other groups
Yeah,
definitely have, such as your
they
Manhattan
understand.
Institutes and so on and so forth.
You're
So
handing it to give us reparations would be to hand the sniper a rifle. They understand that.
yeah.
They understand that. They
Yeah, they know. Yeah,
understand that.
they know. And so the thing is, they only go to the surface of us getting money, and then they call it a handout to try to make it seem like it's so bad. I'm like, do you know how many other groups
Don't care
have
what they
gotten
think.
handouts? But they don't call them handouts. They call them set asides or
Yeah.
subsidies. So they got to make it. They got to pretty it up, put a
Um,
nice little bow and ribbon on there. But when it's us, it's like, here you go. It's just like a handout. No,
they can call it a
that's
handout. They can call it whatever they want, as long as as long as I'm getting it, and then they are. I mean, I'm going to weaponize it against them immediately. As soon as I get it, I can't wait because I'm going to weaponize. They understand that. They
right.
understand that.
Yeah.
That's why they try to guilt and shame. They understand that a certain segment of us
Definitely.
is going to say, okay,
Yeah.
now it's time to weaponize this against you.
Yeah, that's why that's why I said they're so scared. Like usually whenever someone goes into panic mode, that's when they really start to reveal themselves.
Hmm.
And like I said, it's not because that we're not going to do anything, just with it. They're worried that we will.
Oh yeah.
That's what they're worried about. See, the thing is, they know that we, a lot of us can come from like the intelligence side. That's why they have to try to put out so much like of the
Filth.
buffoonish behavior out there to say that's who they are. Like that's not everybody. That's just a
Yeah.
small sector. That's actually a minority. That's
Yes.
not everybody. Like the conversation we're having right now, you'll be surprised about how many people are having the same conversation right now, or
Right
have had
now.
it and will have it down
Yes.
the line.
We're just having it on an open forum in YouTube. I mean, or on StreamYard where everyone can hear it. I mean, I'm glad. This is why the advent of the new Black media, intelligent Black society, has been such a fulcrum. Is because we always thought these things, but we didn't have anyone really there to talk to about it. You could talk to Jim Clyburn, or I used to bump Donna Brazile. I called her my mentor at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I could never have a conversation with her about these things. She would always turn it into something else.
Yeah.
And now it feels this is very authentic.
Yeah.
It's very powerful and it's very truthful, and it moves people. It scares people,
Yeah.
and it provokes thought, and those are good things, because once you
Definitely.
get people beyond their comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
and they may get angry, they may get upset. They say, Josiah, why do you have these views, man? Why couldn't we just all get along? Blah blah blah.
Mm.
But then they go off and think, and then a couple of months later, like, you know what, you were right. I see it for what it is now. The truth is powerful. It affects people. Once you just deliver the truth, let it settle in, people will gravitate towards the truth, and they will want to implement the truth and replace a lie with truth. Those are
Exactly.
biblical principles.
Mm.
Because what is the saying? The devil is a lie.
Yep.
So I mean,
Yeah,
we just have to keep plugging away. It's not going to go. It's not going to be anything quick. It's not going to. This is not going to be over in a day. It's not going to
definitely.
be over once we get our reparations check.
Oh no,
Well,
nah.
it's
That's just
it'll
step
be just
one.
beginning. It'll be the
Yeah,
end of the first stage, and now it's on to that long second stage where it's going to be even more difficult. It's going to come after
exactly.
us. But
Because there's a lot of years of repair that
yes,
has to be done, not only on the financial side, but definitely on the mental side. I always said that when it came to slavery, the physical definitely hurt and you heal from the physical, but that mental enslavement
yes,
is what gravitates, and you can still see it, unfortunately, with some of our people today. Like, especially since many of us never got the type of therapy that we needed,
yeah,
coming out of something that tragic and that traumatic. So it's going to be a lot that goes into it. Like I said, the foundation, of course, is getting the actual, cash payments. That's the first step.
yeah,
Then we have to build onto that. It's like building a house from the ground up. You
yes,
don't just go right into a brand new house that's already built. Like, it's a process to that. You have to have a blueprint, the layout where everything is going to be. Then you got to break ground. Then you got to start structuring everything from here all the way up. Then
yes.
after it's built, then you got to interiorize it and put everything in its proper place. So it's a process to it. And like you said, it's not an overnight thing. I wouldn't want it to
No,
be an overnight thing.
no, it's
One
not
thing
gonna
I've
it's not
always
gonna
said,
succeed. If it's
one
overnight, it's not gonna work. I
one
mean, we
thing I've
have to be patient. A
yeah.
lot of us are not patient, and I have to stop myself too. I want to be patient. I have to be patient. Josiah, be patient. I mean, things that do not things that happen overnight. Usually, if it's a microwave hot pocket, it's not going to taste as good as if you let it sit in the oven and let it
Mm,
bake and get crisp on
yeah.
the outside. You have to take time and build these things in the
Yeah.
institutions so they can last.
Yeah.
And I think we get into this microwave world we live in. I think we get so caught up in instant gratification that
Mm,
we don't realize that, hey, what I'm building I may never see the end of it. Maybe my grandkids that actually reap the benefits. It may be my great grandchildren that reap the benefits, but somebody has to reap the benefits,
yeah.
and it may not be me. White supremacy. Let's look at it different. I think people will understand if I explain it this way. The first Europeans that came over here, they didn't get the best economy in the world, did
Hmm.
they?
No.
It didn't happen automatically. That just it didn't automatically turn on. They had to make the quote unquote sacrifices to reap the benefits of. Now you see Richard Spencer and all these other guys, they're
Mm,
arguing over who gets the most benefits now.
yeah.
But that didn't start instantly. They had a game plan, they stuck to it, they thought about their lineage beyond themselves, and they built for that. And we have to do the same thing. So our
Hmm.
generation has to understand that we got to lay the groundwork for this house, and
Definitely.
our kids are going to start laying the cement, and then the kids are after that will start building the infrastructure around it. Then the kids after that may start putting the nice furniture and gold plated plates in there. We have to build, and it should be a slow and gradual process. We're not going to wake up tomorrow and have everything we need.
Most definitely. But hey, man, listen, we've been on here for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
And like I said, I love having conversations because you don't pay attention to the time; it just kind of flows.
yeah,
And when you're having a good dialogue, and we was having a very good dialogue, like we could probably go like another 2 hours. But
yeah.
yeah, like it was
I could talk about my people all day, man.
yeah,
I
like,
love it.
hey, me too. Like that's the same reason why I come on here and do and talk about what I talk about every single day, because it's not just about the stories that I bring, because anyone could go and pull these stories and just read them for themselves. But I like the people that I like the perspective that I'm able to give and the response that I'm able to get from the people. It kind of starts a dialogue and an engagement and everything of that nature.
Yeah,
But I'm glad that I was able to have this conversation with you. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever actually spoken with you. Actually, like I said, got introduced to you kind of formally, informally, just a couple days ago. And people on the outside looking in, the way that they hear us talking, they probably thought we knew each other for years.
yeah,
And so it's just crazy how all of this just kind of plays itself out. Again, shout out to GBS, or Great Black Shark, as some of you may or may not know him.
Major shout
Again,
out, man.
yeah, he's the one that actually helped to set uh this up. So definitely huge shout out to him. I'm gonna leave the link to his channel down below. But I'm gonna let you have the last, few words, if there's any kind of closing statements that you wanted to make.
Yeah, my book May 22nd. God love us. It's this is every this is my dollars put in this. There's no donations. This is all me. This is all my blood, sweat, and tears. on my long hours out up writing this book after taking care of my young son. If you got young children, you know how hard that is.
Mm,
Go get it. But most importantly, you know, my whole overall goal is to build Spirit of 1811 Publishing to be something that lives beyond me.
right.
I'm not looking to get rich off this. I don't care less. I make enough money. What I want
Yeah.
to do is build something for young Black authors that have something to say that's
Mm,
powerful and prophetic for our community. They can come and speak, and they don't have to be formulated to write something about this topic or that topic, LGBT or whatever. They can speak Black, and
hmm
we have to have places where we can speak our own and dissipate
And
that for the world.
unapologetically.
Yes. So that's what helped me build that. I ask you to help me build that. Visit my website, www.spirit of1811publishing.com. Visit, buy a book by all means, and enjoy yourself. But sign up for the newsletter as well, and support what I'm trying to build here. This is something that I want to live beyond me.
A legacy.
Yes, a legacy for all of us as foundational Black Americans.
But definitely, and like I said, I'll leave all of your information down in the description so everybody can go ahead and check that out. Go out and support and buy his books. Y'all already heard, y'all got a small synopsis of
Yes.
what the books are about, so you can imagine what's in them chapters.
Oh yeah,
Like,
there's no holds bar.
yeah, like
White
I
people,
like.
white people review it. I had white people review it, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is." They could. It's a
Mhm,
page turner, but ooh, it makes me think, and
mhm,
it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, yeah, you're supposed to feel uncomfortable.
mm,
That's a good book. It's supposed to take you somewhere uncomfortable. Yeah, but I
exactly.
think I forwarded you a YouTube video, one of my
Yeah, you.
trailer. You
Yeah, you
know,
did.
yeah, I have a YouTube
I'll leave the
channel, by
link
the
to
way.
I'll leave the link to that down below as well, because that's
Yeah.
that's your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, that's a YouTube channel. I just usually put my trailers there, but you can
Okay.
also go on our website and see other trailers as well.
Okay.
But
Okay. Yeah, I'll
yeah,
leave the link. Like I said, I'll leave the link to all of that down there, in the description, so people can come and see. And for those who, for some whatever reason or another, that do not read the description, because I know some of you probably don't,
yeah,
I'm gonna pin it in the comment section so that when you go to leave a comment, you can't miss that. It's like the
yeah.
first comment every time you come up there. But
Oh,
I definitely
can I
go
get
ahead.
one shout out too?
Go ahead.
I have a Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, and I'm on there, but I'm not really on there a lot. But I am on sixzeros.net. If you want to
Okay.
find me, I'm on sixzeros.net. Shout out to Jay for making that website for Black folks.
Mhm.
I've made my personal commitment that is going to be my main social media outlet to the world. So shout out to join sixzeros.net, and you can chop it up with me. I have a book club there as well.
Cool. But I definitely appreciate you coming on, spending, taking some time out of your day in order to come and do this. I know, because right now this is the time where you're really promoting, your book, and that's definitely a great thing. I'm
Yes,
glad that everybody who came through and is able to watch this video to come and hear more about who you are, and just to have this dialogue that was definitely needed. I love when I get to have these kind of conversations with people, because we, like I said, we come from all walks of life. Not
yeah,
everyone's going to think the same, and I'm glad that I can talk to people who are on the same wavelength as me, where I can learn from them and they can learn from me.
yes,
But
sir.
with that being said, we are
Thank
about
you
to
for you too. I really
say it
appreciate
again.
what you. Thank you for
Oh,
having me on. I really
oh,
appreciate you, and I've watched you for years, and I admire what you're able to do. And this is, like I said, I know it's hard because I'm
yeah.
a content producer myself, and I know how difficult that can be. And I
Especially
appreciate
this
you.
kind of content.
Yes, sir.
Especially, yeah. But that, like, again, thanks for coming on. Thanks to everybody who came through and was able to check this out. Again, go ahead and check out this man's books. Like, check out his different social media platforms, see what else he's about, because this is only the beginning. I'm very certain there's going to be way more
Yes, sir.
coming down the pipeline. Be safe and be one.
Be one. God bless.